I've been sitting on this bench for a long time. I've seen every flavor of idiot, every shade of liar, and every variety of person who thinks their bank account buys them a different set of rules. But never have I felt my blood pressure spike so fast as it did on the morning of Tuesday, November 14th. That was the day political arrogance walked into my courtroom on crocodile skin heels and tried to wipe its feet on an honest man's dignity. And if you want to hear exactly what happened, hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is not just a case. It's a lesson that took one very expensive woman a very long time to learn. The file hit my desk the afternoon before. Simple, disorderly conduct at an elementary school, or so it looked. My court clerk, Martha, set the folder down with a sigh that told me everything. She stuck a bright red sticky note on the front. Judge, you need to brace yourself. The video evidence in here, it is truly hard to watch. The defendant was Elena Sterling, 45 years old, wife of State Senator Michael Sterling, the man running for his third term with the slogan, "For the working people." Ironically, his wife was standing before the bar for trampling on those exact people. The next morning, Elena walked into my courtroom like she was attending a fundraising gala. Platinum blonde updo, custom Chanel suit, $5,000 minimum, a crocodile skin Hermes Birkin on her arm, Jimmy Choo heels clicking a rhythm of pride against my courthouse floor. Trailing behind her, 3 lawyers in glossy black suits from the most expensive firm in the city. She sat down, removed her Dior sunglasses, looked around the courtroom like she'd accidentally wandered into the wrong zip code, and pulled out her phone, scrolling, completely ignoring my presence. In 30 years on this bench, nobody has done that. That was strike one. On the other side of the room, shrinking into a hard wooden bench, was Mr. Arthur Jenkins, 68 years old, janitor at Lincoln Elementary for 25 years. Dark blue uniform, faded at the shoulders, fraying at the cuffs, rough, calloused hands clasped tightly in his lap. Beside him, no expensive lawyers, just a young public defender trying to calm him down. The contrast was not lost on me. Not for a second. I banged the gavel. "Mrs. Sterling, do you understand why you are here today?" She didn't even stand. She let out a theatrical sigh and whispered to her lead attorney. Her lawyer, Richard, industrial-grade smile, stood up on her behalf. "Your Honor, my client believes this is a disastrous misunderstanding. She is the victim of a political smear campaign aimed at her husband. We move for an immediate dismissal of all charges." "Dismissal," he said. "Dismissal. Counselor, I have read the indictment. Your client is charged with third-degree assault, disorderly conduct, and harassment. So before you say misunderstanding again, think carefully." Elena spoke up herself, still not looking at Mr. Arthur. "It was just a minor scuffle. He ruined my Mo 00 shoes. I should be the one suing him for property damage." The courtroom went silent. "You say he ruined your shoes?" I said, my voice dropping. "The indictment says you forced him to get on his knees and lick them clean. So let's skip the opinions and watch the video. I deal in facts." The monitor flickered to life. Date stamp, November 14th, 2:15 p.m., Lincoln Elementary, main hallway. On screen, Mr. Arthur slowly pushing a heavy mop bucket, doing his job, cleaning muddy footprints left by hundreds of kids. And this is important. He placed a bright yellow wet floor sign right in the center of the hallway. He was following protocol. He was doing everything right. Then the door swung open. Elena Sterling burst into frame, not walking, storming, phone to her ear, head down, completely ignoring the world around her. She walked right past the yellow warning sign. Her handbag clipped the mop handle. The bucket wobbled, tipped, and a small splash of soapy water hit the toe of her left shoe. An accident caused entirely by her own haste. What happened next made my stomach turn. Elena froze, looked at her shoe, looked at Mr. Arthur, didn't check if she'd hurt him, didn't apologize. She threw her phone in her bag and lunged at him. "You stupid, blind old fool." Her voice rang out clear on the recording. Mr. Arthur flinched, hands up to his chest. "Look what you did. This is Italian suede. I'm so sorry, ma'am." Mr. Arthur's voice was barely a whisper. He bent down, knees cracking, and reached for a rag to dry her shoe. "Let me help you." I didn't mean to. And that's when it happened. As Mr. Arthur reached out with the rag, Elena kicked his hand away. Not a nudge, a sharp, vicious kick with the point of her heel. The rag skittered across the hallway. "Don't touch me with that filthy rag." You want to act like a piece of trash? Then clean it like one. Get down there. Use your mouth. A gasp swept the courtroom. Even Elena's lawyer looked away. Ma'am, I said clean it or I will call the superintendent and have you fired before you can stand up. You lose your pension, you lose your health insurance. Is that what you want? I paused the video. The image froze on Mr. Arthur, defeated, broken, hovering inches from her shoe, while Elena stood over him with a look of pure satisfaction. Lights back up. Elena was checking her cuticles. She looked up, saw me staring, and had the nerve to roll her eyes. It looks worse on video than it actually was. He was being dramatic, and besides, he didn't actually do it. The principal stopped him. So, really, no harm done, right? No harm done, I repeated. 2 words, loudest thing said in that room all morning. I looked at Mr. Arthur. He was weeping silently, face buried in those rough, calloused hands. Mrs. Sterling, you threatened a man's pension, his health care, his ability to eat over a water spot on a shoe. He's a janitor, Judge. It's his job to clean messes. My husband is a senator. We have standards. Your husband is a public servant, and you just admitted to using his position to terrorize a citizen. I turned to the prosecutor. Is there more? Yes, Your Honor. When Principal Higgins came out to stop this, Mrs. Sterling didn't stop. She turned her rage on the school staff. Call Mrs. Higgins. Elena leaned back and smirked. Let the little teacher talk. My husband approves the school budget. Let's see what she dares to say. In my courtroom, she'll dare to say everything. Mrs. Sarah Higgins took the stand. Small woman, sensible cardigan, reading glasses on a chain, 30 years shaping young minds, but her hands were trembling so badly the water in her cup was rippling. Elena was staring at her from the defense table like a viper. I heard the commotion from my office. When I came out, I saw Mr. Arthur about to kneel. I ran over and grabbed his arm. I told him, Arthur, get up. You do not do that. And how did the defendant react? She was furious. She pointed her finger in my face and said, if you stop him, you're next. She told me her husband sits on the State Appropriations Committee. She said she would slash Lincoln Elementary's budget to 0. She said she would turn our school into a parking lot if I didn't show her proper respect. Let me be clear about what that is. That is not a temper tantrum. That is extortion. Liar. Elena slammed her hand on the table. That is a blatant lie. I never said that. Sit down, Mrs. Sterling. One more outburst and you will be in contempt faster than you can say Chanel. She sat. She has no proof, she muttered into the microphone. It's her word against mine. The prosecutor smiled, not a happy smile, the smile of someone who'd been waiting for exactly this. Actually, Your Honor, we do have proof. Mrs. Sterling sent an email to the district superintendent 7 minutes after the incident. We subpoenaed it. May I read it for the record? Proceed. The room went dead silent. Subject line, urgent, Lincoln Elementary staffing. Body. The staff at Lincoln are incompetent and disrespectful, specifically Principal Higgins and the janitor. I want them both gone by tomorrow morning. If they are still employed when Michael reviews the budget next week, expect 0 funding for the district's renovation projects. Fix this mess or I will fix your career. The gasp in that courtroom could have fogged windows. Black and white written evidence. She had tried to destroy 2 careers and an entire school district's funding because she tripped over a mop. Mrs. Higgins, did the superintendent contact you? Yes. He called 10 minutes later. He asked if I could suspend Mr. Arthur for a few days, just to smooth things over. He said we couldn't afford to anger the Starings. So, I said slowly. You were asked to punish the victim to protect the bully. I refused. I told him Arthur did nothing wrong. I told him I would resign before I let Arthur take the fall. That's why I'm here today. I might lose my job for testifying, Judge, but I couldn't let Arthur stand alone. You will not lose your job, I said, eyes on Elena. Not while I'm sitting here. Defense? No cross-examination. Richard sat back down quietly. What? Elena hissed at him. Destroy her credibility. That's what I pay you for. Be quiet, Elena, Richard whispered back, loud enough for the front row. You handed them a smoking gun. Elena stood up anyway. Judge. So, I sent an angry email. It's my First Amendment right. Are we really going to waste the court's time because I have high standards? Look at him. She pointed at Mr. Arthur. He's just a janitor. Why are we pretending his feelings matter as much as my reputation? The room went ice cold. I took off my glasses, set them gently on the bench, leaned forward. You believe your husband's title gives you value, and you believe Mr. Arthur's job title takes his away? Well, doesn't it? I contribute thousands to this city. He mops floors. Is that so? Then let's talk about contribution. Mr. Prosecutor, call your next witness. The next witness is Dr. James Miller, Chief of Surgery at Providence General Hospital. Elena frowned. Why is a surgeon here? Did he mop the operating room? Because you called Mr. Arthur just a janitor. We're about to find out exactly who this man really is. Dr. James Miller took the stand. Quiet authority, gray suit, the kind of confidence you want in the person holding a scalpel over your heart. He looked at Mr. Arthur, and to everyone's surprise, this distinguished surgeon's eyes filled with tears. I know him better than I know my own father. Can you explain your relationship? 30 years ago, I was a student at Lincoln Elementary, a foster kid, angry, hungry, hopeless, holes in my sneakers in winter. That man, he pointed at Arthur, found me hiding in the boiler room after I got suspended. I thought he'd turn me in. Instead, he shared his sandwich with me and listened to a 10-year-old boy cry for an hour. For 6 years, Arthur was the only father figure I had. When I had no lunch money, there was always an extra apple on my desk. When I wanted to drop out, he waited for me by the school gate every afternoon. When I got into medical school, I couldn't afford the books. I found an envelope with $500 cash. It took me 10 years to learn that Arthur had sold his only truck to get that money. He walked 5 miles to work every day for a year so I could become a doctor. A sob broke from the back of the room. Even the bafe was blinking hard. Mr. Arthur isn't just a janitor. Dr. Miller looked directly at Elena. He is a guardian angel. I save hearts, Mrs. Sterling. But Mr. Arthur, he saves souls. Objection. Character evidence. No bearing on the assault charge. Overruled. It goes directly to the character of the victim your client called trash. Elena scoffed. So he bought you a sandwich. Does that give him the right to ruin my shoes? This is a court of law, not a Hallmark movie. Mrs. Sterling, Dr. Miller said, cold and precise. Those shoes cost more than Mr. Arthur makes in a month. When I offered to buy him a car to repay him, he said, give the money to the school library. The kids need books. He refused to take a dime. Your Honor, she didn't just kick a janitor. She assaulted the most honorable man in this city. And if you're just joining this story, go ahead and subscribe, because what happens next in this courtroom is something I have genuinely never seen before. As Dr. Miller walked past the defense table, he stopped. He looked at Elena. She glared back. My husband will hear about this testimony. You might be chief of surgery, but we know people on the hospital board threatening a witness. I cut her off right here in front of me. Sit down, Dr. Miller. Mrs. Sterling, you are in a court of law. Act like it. The prosecution rested. Elena stood before her lawyer could speak, walked to the witness stand as though she were accepting an award, and took the oath like she was doing the Bible a favor. I don't need witnesses. I'll testify myself. Go ahead, Judge. Ask me anything. But be careful. The election is next week, and my husband is watching. You just told me to be careful in my courtroom. Mrs. Sterling, you are under oath. Do you understand what that means? It means I tell the truth, which you people seem to be struggling with today. I have a luncheon at 12:30. A luncheon? Mr. Arthur is worried about keeping his health insurance, and you're worried about being late for lunch. Priorities, Your Honor. Some of us have important schedules. On the video, we heard you demand Mr. Arthur clean your shoe with his mouth. Did you say those words? It was a figure of speech. I was angry. In the real world, where my husband and I operate, when you make a mistake, you pay for it. I was teaching him accountability. It was his choice. Really, his choice. She called her own extortion his choice. You believe that because you are wealthy and powerful, you have the right to strip another human being of their dignity. Dignity? She laughed. Harsh, brittle. He's a janitor, Judge. Society has a hierarchy. I am at the top. He is at the bottom. That is not cruelty. That is just how the world works. If he wanted dignity, he should have worked harder in school. I glanced at Dr. Miller in the gallery, the man who became a surgeon because of Mr. Arthur. The irony was invisible from her altitude. You mentioned your husband is watching. You mentioned the election. What exactly are you implying? Michael doesn't like activist judges attacking his wife. If you find me guilty, it won't look good for you. He sits on the Judicial Review Board. He approves the budget for this very courthouse. Do you understand what I'm saying? The courtroom gasped. I turned to my court reporter. Did you get all of that? Yes, Your Honor. Good, because you just threatened a sitting judge on the official record. I leaned forward. Is that your position? Elena leaned into the microphone and dropped her voice to a whisper. I'm not threatening you, Judge. I'm offering you a lifeline. Dismiss this case. Make the old man apologize to me. And when Michael wins next week, maybe there's a federal judgeship in it for you. We can make that happen. She smiled, the smile of someone who had never once been told no. She just tried to bribe me in open court on the record in front of 50 people. I sat back, closed the file, took a breath. Mrs. Sterling, you have made a very serious miscalculation. You assume that because you have a price tag on your soul, everyone else does too. You assume that this courtroom is a marketplace where justice can be purchased like a Birkin bag. I stood up. You are no longer just accused of assault. You have just committed attempted bribery and obstruction of justice in front of 50 witnesses in my courtroom. You can't be serious. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are. You are a bully in a Chanel suit. And you are about to learn that in this room, the Constitution outweighs your husband's bank account. Officer, lock the doors. No one leaves. I'm leaving. Richard, call Michael. Sit down. First time I raised my voice. It filled every corner of that room. You are not going anywhere. I have a lunch, she screamed. I am Elena Sterling, and I am the person deciding your future. And unlike everyone else you've bullied into silence, I am not afraid of you. Not even a little bit. Bail was revoked. Handcuffs clicked into place, but I wasn't finished. Before she leaves, I have a judgment to render, and I want her looking at Mr. Arthur while I do it. The bailiff turned Elena to face the prosecution table. She tried to look anywhere else. Look at him, I said low, hard. You see a janitor, someone to kick, someone to threaten. Let me tell you what I see. I see a man who has spent 25 years making sure children have a clean, safe place to learn. I see a man who shared his lunch with a hungry boy. I see a man who walked 5 miles to work so a stranger could become a surgeon. I see a man who refused a free car because he wanted the school to have books. I leaned over the bench. In the grand scheme of humanity, Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Arthur is a giant, and you, despite your millions, your title, and your Chanel suit, are very small. Elena stopped struggling. For the first time all day, she was just listening. On the charges of third-degree assault, harassment, and disorderly conduct, guilty on all counts. Normally, for a first-time offender, I might consider probation, but you showed zero remorse, tried to bribe the court, and threatened the judiciary. I am sentencing you to the full 365 days. No early release, no special treatment. A year for a shoe. It was never about the shoe. It was about the power. You tried to use yours to crush a man. Now the law is using its power to correct you. I held up a finger. And on the felony charges of attempted bribery and obstruction of justice, I am binding those over to the grand jury. Separate bail $500,000. Until that is paid, you remain in custody. Real fear, the kind that makes your hands shake, finally arrived. Her lawyers were already packing their briefcases. Richard, do something. I can't, Elena. You threatened a judge on the record. You're on your own. Just then, my bailiff handed me a note. Senator Michael Sterling had just arrived in the building demanding to enter. The doors burst open. Michael Sterling marched down the center aisle like a general. Navy suit, American flag pin, practiced booming voice. What is the meaning of this? Unhand her immediately. Do you have any idea who you are manhandling? Officer, do not let go of the defendant. Senator, one more step toward this bench and I will have you in cuffs right next to her. He stopped, flushed deep red. You're making a mistake, Judge. I've already called the governor. Release her on her own recognizance, or by tomorrow morning, you'll be presiding over traffic tickets in the basement. Senator, everything you are saying is being recorded on the official transcript. So choose your next words carefully. I picked up the transcript. Your wife was just convicted of assault. She is also being held on felony bribery charges, in which she explicitly linked your political influence to the outcome of this trial. Did you authorize her to offer bribes and make threats on your behalf? The color drained from his face completely. She said that. He looked at Elena with horror. Michael, tell him who we are. But Michael Sterling didn't step forward. He stepped back. We all watched the calculation happen behind his eyes, the polls, the headlines. I had no knowledge of this. I never authorized her to say those things. If she did that, she acted alone. I am a man of the law. I respect the judicial process. I cannot condone bribery. You coward! Elena screamed. You told me to fix it. You told me to do whatever it took. I banged the gavel. Senator, front row, you are an observer. Sit down. He sat, looking like a deflated balloon. Every person in that room understood exactly what had just happened. He had thrown his own wife under the bus to save his campaign. I turned back to Elena. tears of pure betrayal on her face. Her husband, her shield, her source of power gone. She was completely alone. Mrs. Sterling, it seems your power has left the building. Do you still accept the deal? 1,000 hours of community service under Mr. Arthur's supervision? Or would you prefer jail while your husband campaigns without you? She looked at Michael. He was staring at his shoes. She looked at her lawyers. They were checking their watches. Then she looked at Mr. Arthur. He hadn't moved. He was watching with profound pity. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just sadness for her. I accept, she whispered. I'll do the cleaning. One final condition. You kicked his hand. You called him trash. You tried to ruin his life. And yet, he is the only reason you are not in a cell tonight. After everything you did to him, he chose mercy. I want you to look him in the eye and apologize. Not a politician's apology, a real one. Elena turned slowly toward Mr. Arthur. She looked at his worn boots, his calloused hands, and then Mr. Arthur did something that broke every heart in that room. He walked over to her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean white handkerchief. Her hands were cuffed behind her back. She couldn't wipe her own tears. Mr. Arthur, the man she had ordered to lick her shoe, gently reached up and wiped the mascara from her cheek. It's okay, ma'am. You don't have to say it for me. Just show me. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. I'll have a uniform waiting for you. Elena stared at him. Her lip quivered and the dam broke. She wasn't crying for herself anymore. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I am so, so sorry. The first honest thing she'd said all day, sentence recorded. 1,000 hours community service. Court is adjourned. I banged the gavel. The sun hadn't risen the next morning when I drove past Lincoln Elementary, 5:55 a.m. Parking lot empty except for Mr. Arthur's old rusted pickup. And right next to it, a taxi. Elena hadn't taken the town car. She hadn't taken the Mercedes. She walked in wearing the blue janitorial uniform, 2 sizes too big, no makeup, hair in a simple ponytail. She didn't look like a senator's wife. She looked like a person. Mr. Arthur was waiting by the mop closet. He didn't lecture her. He handed her a pair of rubber gloves and said, "Morning, Elena. We start with the cafeteria. The kids need clean tables for breakfast." For the first week, she cried every day. Her hands blistered. Her muscles ached, but she didn't quit because every time she wanted to throw down the mop, she saw Arthur working right beside her. At 68, outworking her, humming, greeting every child by name, showing her the job wasn't about cleaning dirt. It was about caring for the people who walked on those floors. The election came 6 days later. Michael Sterling didn't just lose, he was obliterated. The video of him abandoning his wife in my courtroom went viral. 40 million views. His political career ended that Tuesday afternoon. He's currently under investigation for campaign finance fraud. Karma, as they say, never loses an address. But Elena, something changed. Around hour 300 of her community service, the crying stopped. One afternoon, a little girl dropped her lunch tray. Spaghetti everywhere. The girl was terrified, bracing for anger. Elena was there before Arthur. She knelt down. She looked at the girl, not the mess. It's okay, sweetie. It's just pasta. Accidents happen. Look, we can fix it. Elena Sterling, the woman who had threatened to fire a man over a water spot on her shoe, got down on her hands and knees and cleaned up the spaghetti with a smile so a little girl wouldn't feel bad. When Mr. Arthur saw that, he nodded. The lesson had finally landed. Elena finished her 1,000 hours last month. The day her sentence ended, she walked into my courtroom one last time, not as a defendant. She looked different, tired, but clear. The arrogance was gone. Judge, she said, I wanted to thank you. Thank me? I almost sent you to prison. You saved me from a prison I didn't even know I was in. I was trapped in a box of money and ego. After 6 months with Arthur, I realized I'm not even half the person he is, but I'm trying to be. She placed a check on my desk. $50,000. Is this a bribe? I asked. She smiled. A real one. It's a donation for the Lincoln Elementary Library. I sold the Birkin bag. I sold the shoes. I don't need them anymore. Mr. Arthur retired last week. The school threw him a party. And guess who baked the cake? Elena. She sat with him at the head table, not as a superior, but as his friend. This case reminds me why I sit on this bench. Justice isn't just about punishment. True justice is about restoration. Taking something broken and doing the hard, painful work to fix it. Elena Sterling walked into my courtroom a bully. She walked out a human being. So the next time you see someone cleaning a floor, serving your coffee, or collecting your trash, remember, Mr. Arthur, dignity isn't found in a title or a bank account. It's found in how we treat each other. And if this story reminded you that everyone deserves respect, subscribe, share it, and let someone else hear it too. These are the stories worth spreading. I'm Judge Judy. Court is adjourned.